All right, let's talk a little bit more about all of this drama unfolding on the West Coast. We have our political analyst joining us, Max Cameron, political science professor at the University of BC. He's in Vancouver. And Michael Geoghegan, political commentator, joining us today from Victoria. Gentlemen, thank you to both of you for joining us. Max, let me start with you. The lieutenant governor has a couple of options. We know that. But can she be advised by anyone? And if so, who would that be?
Absolutely. In fact, the premier has a constitutional obligation to give her advice to the lieutenant governor and in effect tell her either to dissolve the House and call new elections or to allow the next largest party, the BC NDP, to have a chance to form government. This is not an obligation that she can avoid, and so she's being a little bit coy. I think Chandler was right. People don't want an election, but clearly the premier would like that outcome. But this is not something that should be left up to the lieutenant governor to decide, if at all possible. That said, the lieutenant governor has the prerogative to determine whether to call for a dissolution of the House in an election or to allow another political party to try to form the government.
Michael, historically here, which way do you think that the lieutenant governor would go? Because, as we say, it really is up to her, but is there some precedent she can follow?
Well, that's what's going on right now is the people that are advising the lieutenant governor are going through all sorts of historic precedents, both in Canada and in other Commonwealth countries. The part of the problem is that the opposition parties combined, they have literally a one-seat majority. Obviously, the Hail Mary play for Christy Clark and the BC Liberals is for the lieutenant governor to be convinced or decide to call a snap election and then hope that the BC electorate is not angered by that and doesn't reward the NDP with a majority government. So Christy Clark's only option path to staying in power is for there to be a snap election and for the Liberals to win a majority. That having been said, I think there's examples. There's the King Byng affair. There's other examples federally and provincially where I think the lieutenant governor can point to examples where they called upon the opposition to form a government. But given how close the results are, literally 44 versus 43, there'll be controversy whichever way the lieutenant governor decides. But it is being seen. One concern is that the lieutenant governor does come from an organization that donated to the BC Liberals. So if the lieutenant governor does call an election, it may be seen as a somewhat partisan decision. So there'll be lots of controversy regardless of which way the LG decides.
All right, Max, I want to throw it over to you and talk a little bit more about the problems getting any work done when you have such a tight division in the seats, meaning 44 and 43. Of course, one person has to go to the speaker's position, which means what when you're trying to get things passed?
It is a challenge, and it does mean that once you take the speaker out of, let's say, the NDP bench, you've essentially got an exactly hung parliament. And the speaker, consequently, would be breaking tie votes, possibly with some regularity. And I think that does raise significant concerns. Then it goes to the question of whether the NDP Green Supply and Confidence Agreement is a credible one. And so the lieutenant governor could very well decide that it's not. But were she to do so, then she would be essentially overriding the will of a majority, albeit a slim one, of elected members of the Legislative Assembly. And that's not a position that you want to put the lieutenant governor in. This is essentially supposed to be a nonpartisan umpire, someone who is above the partisan fray. And it's imperative that the actions of the lieutenant governor be seen to be giving the House the opportunity to work. Christy Clark asked for the chance to see whether she could test whether she had the competence of the legislature. Now the other parties are saying, we want a chance. The lieutenant governor, I think, has to tread very carefully here.
Michael, I just want to ask you a quick question. Because the throne speech was so NDP friendly and meant to be, will it look bad on Mr. Horgan as he's gone now forward with this motion? Will it look bad on him to reject it the way he is?
I don't think so, because I think a lot of people understand that, first of all, it was shocking, the abrupt U-turn that the Liberals made, where they suddenly adopted a bunch of NDP and Green platform. So I think the magnitude of that U-turn, I think it alarmed some of the more conservative members of the BC Liberal government. And I think on the NDP side, I think it was a situation where they expect that if they're called upon to form a government, they want to see how many of those Liberal MLAs then turn around and vote for or against those very same measures. So I think it's one where they're looking forward to being called upon to be government, put these items back up to a vote and see if the Liberals do another flip-flop or not. So I think that's where the NDP thoughts are at right now.
All right, we've got to leave it there. We are out of time. It's going to be an interesting night for sure out on the West Coast. We'll be watching as it all unfolds. Max Cameron, Michael Geoghegan, sirs, thank you for joining us.